Welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Good evening,
Hello,
all.
Dr. Gail and Guy.
Hi, Dr. Michael Wright. How are you?
I'm pretty good. And
Yeah,
how are you?
good and tired. You see my face? You see my eyes?
Tired.
Tired. But
Probably
we're here.
from walking, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. We had a fabulous weekend on Sunday. I mean, things happened that I didn't expect to happen. But it happened. We walked. We had my collaborators joining me with some folks in the community. We had the local newspaper and the local TV. So let me get it right. It's the Government Access Network. So they were there and they recorded the entire event. So the event was good. It was quite well planned. We've had quite a bit of supporters, right, with water and stuff. In fact, we had more than enough water. Um, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was good. So
That,
tell me about, because we know
mm-hmm.
if people have been following this whole platform and
Mm-hmm.
presentation is about the cry rate idea, the acronym there,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about these issues and bringing them to the forefront, putting them straight in your face,
Mm-hmm.
helping bring awareness about being
Mm-hmm.
able to and having the courage and
Mm-hmm.
often the support, even beyond your personal courage, but the community of support, where you will
Mm-hmm.
be listened to about issues of intimate partner violence, domestic violence. And I think always there's always that element of the types of kind of general abuse and microaggressions that we
Right.
feel
We don't
in
talk
the
about.
world. Yeah, the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that just makes it
Mm-hmm.
seem like it's normal to be abused and
Mm-hmm.
mistreated, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you get
Mm-hmm.
used to that kind of
Mm-hmm.
treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's this whole platform. There's
Mm-hmm.
different implementations of it. The new implementation is the pair model, which is
Mm-hmm.
the same thing, but just
Mm-hmm.
softer or audience, so it's not as
Mm-hmm.
hard on their ears. But you decided to do this walk.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why the walk?
Why? Listen, so again, it is my passion, right? And it's something that we all struggle with from one time or another. If we were to be real about it, not only that, we've been experiencing quite a bit of domestic violence in our community, where young people are being killed, burnt in cars, shoot in their homes. I mean, it was just on and on. And of course, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And what's my campaign? Cry Rape, right? We've had other people behind the scenes, not just me, who do the work, who cry rape, whether I'm talking about cry rape or some of them are talking about violence, and what they're really crying is making that loud noise saying enough is enough, we need to take a stand. So I got into it because there's a need for it to happen. There's a need to bring awareness to the issues. We don't often talk about those things that are so they're not so present, right? Like verbal abuse and emotional abuse and psychological abuse. We talk about violence as far as the physical and the hurt and the killing and the shooting, but it's abuse on all forms, on every level that affects homes and schools and you know, on every platform that we could think about.
Yeah, and so tell me about the event. Was it of course walking was involved. Did were there speaking opportunities, those types of things? What was the agenda?
Yeah, so we had a plaque program. My children came over to support me. I really was happy about that.
All right.
And unbeknownst to me, my mom, listen, that was a shock, I swear. Um, was there. My brother was there. I had my family members that was there. We had a few churches that was there representation. One church closed the whole church down just so that the members can be there. The Spanish mission, and then I had the um, something Church of God of Prophecy was there. Pastor Francine Adlande, she's gonna kill me. But anyway, brother, Brian was there. He helped coordinate when I didn't know what I was doing because you've done this before. He said, "Girl, you're gonna need this. You're gonna need that. You're gonna need it." And you know what? It was great because I got everything I need. Everything was in place. So yes, we had different speakers. I had my Cry Rape campaign, the one that's a little video that was played as in the beginning as the introduction, and then we had Dr. Kanuma, your girl. She was sort of the host, MC, and then we had Dr. Vincentia Paul Constantine, who talked about the mental health aspect of it and how it affects communities and individuals, right? In that program, we had some singing. My son sang, and one of my former students sang as well. And then we had prayer, like what I do, everything I do, I have to incorporate God in it because with God, I can't. Without God, it can't happen for me. At least that's my belief. And the end part, I must tell you how this end part happened. I promise you, I've been planning this for months since the ending of August. And not one time I thought about honoring my mom. But you know, my mother and I have had a very tumultuous relationship from childhood until now, and it seems like it's one that I can't put my hands on exactly until um, so the idea, Michael, popped into my head. I was like, okay, you know what? This lady and I have been going through this thing for forever. And that's one of the things, too, that I was trying to promote. I was trying to promote that there is still hope and there is healing and there is forgiveness. And there's honor. And so I believe in the premise of honoring parents, right? And the Bible didn't state whether they're good or bad. It says honor, period. And many a times, not just me, but many a times we can relate. I know there are ladies, daughters, son who can relate to this, my sentiments, that we spend so much time trying to defend and to fix and to ask people to stop, right? Rather than we taking the initiative and making a change for ourselves. So I have been doing that for some time, and my mother was there. This program was supposed to be presented on Sunday. Friday night, I went to bed in my bed as I get my great ideas in the middle of the night, and I started to think. I said maybe I can honor her because she had just came. She came the Thursday or Wednesday. Um, I said she has never been validated. She has been one that have been abused, physically, verbally, mentally, and even sexually. You know, a few years ago, she admitted to me. I asked her one time, "Why is it that you talk to me the way you did? You do talk to me. Why you treat me the way you do? You have three daughters. Why? I mean, I'm forever trying to do everything to gain your approval. It's as if nothing that I do could even satisfy you on the least." And I just couldn't understand why. And she said to me, "Well, Gail, I guess," and I don't know if she had said this to even hurt me more or to help me understand what the issues were, but she admitted that my father had raped her. And as if that was the reason why, right? I felt bad initially. I felt really bad. So I thought to myself, this is some serious stuff, right? I'm like, dang, oh my God, right? But it started making sense to me because this was a woman that was traumatized, was living off of fear and lack of control and did everything that she can so she can maintain some sort of control. And in the midst of that, she was also a very young woman. She at the time she had me, she was 17. Who knows how to take care of a child? And I think those are issues that she would have experienced in her early years but never got checked. And so what she's been doing the whole time is trying to survive. Uh, yeah. So somebody said, wow, uncovering the hurt is powerful.
Mhm.
So the whole time she have been trying to survive. And I guess I was a reminder. I was a reminder of her hurt. I was a reminder of the pain that my father caused her. And maybe when she see my father. But I had to own what it was. I had to acknowledge her pain. I had to acknowledge her hurt and make a conscious choice to do different for myself. So instead of subjecting myself to abuse, for all my life I did that, and my relationship somehow mirrored that. It's amazing, right? How your foundation can be so fractured, and that same foundation perpetuate throughout your entire life. And so my relation, because I know how to take abuse, I know how to be abused, right? And quitting is not a thing for me. I'm going to find a way to make it work. I'm going to find a way to get through it. So I had to acknowledge, come to grips with it. She may have never understand the pain I felt or the pain I am feeling, but I needed to heal. And so I made conscious choice, hard decisions, setting boundaries, and still I know to this point she doesn't understand it. But I need to set boundaries where I could heal. And in healing, I also need to mend broken wounds, at least for her, right? At least try. So I don't know that I could do the heart work, right? Get into her heart or get into the space where she needs to do the work. But the least I could do is honor her, validate her, right?
Yeah.
It was powerful. It was powerful.
I think that's a good segue into discussion. I feel you're getting into not just the walk, but really what the walk's ongoing value is, and the value of your initiative, your passion, Cry Rape. Because as the commenter said about this idea of uncovering the hurt and recognizing that this type of stuff does happen, is so critical that this comes up. And actually, Amber says some more. Recognizing our parents did the best they could. That's such an amazing kind of situation where you're able to honor in the context of knowing or at least acknowledging what they've experienced and being in that space, because that's where the resilience comes from. And at the same time, I want to, my job on this show is putting people to task. It's amazing that our parents, someone asked me a long time ago in a class, she said, but don't you think your mom did the best that she could? And I'm like, I know she did the best she could. But what I also did was I went and read books. When I found out that I didn't
get the healing.
Right? Yeah. This situation, I went and learned more about it. So how do you have both those two together? Because literally you just described it. Like you took the moment, even though you want to engage her to get her to respond and account for the pain that you felt, but you also are trying to balance that piece of listening and learning.
Right.
How do you strike that balance?
I have been doing this for years. For years, I've been trying to explain, to deflect, to bring clarification, to give a reason as to why she shouldn't and why it should not continue. But I think she was in such a place, and this is a serious point. She was in such a place where being mean to me, being disrespectful, being hurtful was the norm because I accepted it. And it was and even with that, I feel like she also taught my other siblings how to do that to me as well, because I just took it. And then when I can't took it, I yell, lash out, like stop, like, behaving and saying, leave me alone. This is not acceptable. But I think what it was, the table turned or the light bulb went off when I recognized that she had my other sisters as well. And she was very particular in how she talked with them. And one day she said to me, well, I have sense. I know not to talk to them in that way. Right? I go, wow. And I know she was still trying to hurt me, but what I felt for her is the pain. I keep saying it, but she had to be in a place of some mental distortion. When we talk about when we're traumatized, we find ourselves altered brain to survive. And so in her way of surviving, she had to be mean to me, right? So somehow to justify the way she is, which tells me the issue wasn't me. The issue wasn't my problem. It was where she was. And so I had to deliberately make very, very hard choices in removing myself. And I'm never going back there, right? I am very comfortable now with the decision I made, because I recognize how sweet the process of healing can be, and the peace you gain from refraining to correct people.
Yeah.
I am going to forever be her daughter, and I'm going to respect her as my mother and do what I have to do as a daughter. But what I'm not going to do moving forward is subjecting myself to her verbal, physical, and whatever else the abuse is. Now, you asked how I navigate going from this to here. I think again, the one word I keep rephrasing is the acknowledgement. Don't, and if I have a word for anyone out there, don't spend your time trying to correct the other person's behavior, because what it's going to do is going to change you into becoming like that. And you're going to be mean and unforgiving and all of that. Don't do that. Spend the time, like you said, Michael, fixing yourself, reading the books, right? And it's what I did. And the irony of this, I've studied social work for almost more than half my life. And yet and still, I had the skills, but did not know how to utilize them until the rubber met the road, and I had enough was enough. I thought to myself, what am I giving to my children? What legacy am I leaving to my kids? That people could just treat you however, and you're okay with that. So I was fighting literally for my life on the psychological level, my life on the emotional level, and even my life physically as well, because stress eats at you, right? Stress ages you, stress kills you. So I needed desperately to have peace. And so I put myself in position where at all costs, I am setting boundaries. I don't care. I'm not in a stage at this particular time as far as how you feel about me setting boundaries. This is a life and death situation. I'm trying to save my life.
I think that is so critically important. And that's the funny thing is, my looking for information wasn't in response to my mom.
Right.
It's more like in the vein of what you're saying. I'm saving my life.
My life.
And I'm moving forward in terms of developing myself, my responsibility. I tell people this all the time. Your responsibility isn't to your parents.
No.
Yes, honor your parents.
Yeah.
But your responsibility isn't to your parents. Your responsibility is to the next generation. That's Amber asked this question about your daughter. And I know that you have a daughter. So, and I think that's a really good idea that we're just talking about. How did you make that transition with your daughter? A lot of us do that whole, I'm not going to do it like I was parented. But I was really concerned about making sure I was doing it based on information that was good information. That's why I had to go and research, and look at how it was going. And when my then spouse, talking with her about, okay, what are your natural gifts in terms of nurturing, and how does that work for you? But then how do we also look toward the future? And we can talk more about that. But what was that initial kind of reaction you had with your daughter and your approach to your daughter in particular?
So actually, I think for me, if I were to be honest about that, is that change started for me once I got pregnant with my daughter. Funny, right? But I was lucky. In as much as I was abused, I was lucky to have the foundation of me for the first 9 years of love and nurture. Right? That was my grandmother, and that came from my aunt. So I learned, and I think naturally I'm that way. But I learned to nurture, and so I was an overprotective mother. I was an anxious mother because I was so particular. Like, someone's going to hurt these kids, and I wouldn't know what to do with myself. So I was 24/7. I mean, like. And even that in itself can become an abuse, right? Because they didn't have the space to be, they couldn't do the sleepovers. I mean, for good reason. They wasn't going to leave my house 6 o'clock in the evening, come back home and do whatever. I was on it, right? At the time, I was a single mother, and I didn't want the same issues to be mine. However, what I did, And I think it's important for parents to understand this, right? I, again, did not want my daughter to mirror the relationship I have with my mom, right? So probably I overcompensate, right? I was very loving, very understanding, like just, but what propelled me even more to be taught and to be cognizant of what was happening was that they understood what healthy love and healthy relationship was, both my daughter and my son. So they would hurt because they loved their grandmother and they loved their mother as well, and they couldn't understand. So what they did was recoil, right? They recoiled. They did not put themselves in places to get hurt, and even when they didn't, they still got hurt because they were still ridiculed for just being themselves. But what my children have that I didn't have at the time is they know the difference. They know what solid love is. They know what nurture is. They know what abuse is and what it shouldn't be. And so they maintain relationship with boundaries. They're not always talked about nicely because people don't understand boundaries. Because when you are finger faggle and you have issues, you can't see and celebrate or even appreciate a person who is whole, who's trying to live whole, who's trying to be healthy, right? You're going to find issues to defend or deflate your own issues, right? But the relationship I have with my daughter is one that is very loving. She's also, and genuinely so. We set boundaries even within ourselves because I could be that overbearing mother. I want to know what's going on in every aspect of the life. And she go, well, mommy, no, we can't. And she is very good in setting boundaries, and I have to respect those boundaries as well as set my own boundaries, right? And that came. I was the mother who my life revolved around my children. I mean, if they go north, I go north. I'm gonna find a way to make sure I'm right there because of that unhealed, that unhealthy way of living. Until a few years ago, I had to make that choice. But Gail, you already raised the kids. Let them go. Let them be. You go for your life.
That was one of, there's some things I can point to as a father that were really critical to the outcomes for my kids, and I could be very proud of. And one of them is exactly what you just said. Mm-hmm. When they were early teen, like preteen age, I sat down with my spouse and I said, you got to realize the whole thing that we're doing here is to get them to leave.
I didn't want them to leave because they were my life.
Yeah. And to be effective when they leave and efficient and to have the decision-making experience and the power, the courage to make tough decisions. Like this is so every moment, yes, you want to protect them, you want to save them, but you also have to let them experience some things knowing that they have a parachute and they have a soft landing waiting if it doesn't work out. And there's some other constructs that came out of that kind of idea. But that was the hard thing and I think the value of having that point counterpoint, having that nurturing in the home, but then also having a father like me who says, hey, let's see how far they'll go, knowing that we can save them if they need help.
What I said to my children, I go, listen, no matter what it is, you can always come home. The bad, the good, the ugly, come home. You hear? I mean, go out there, do what you need to do life. But if life somehow fail you, come home. But can I tell you the first time that this was in play for me, and I know that my children were raised right, they were raised healthy, so they could make conscious choice and make decisions that was going to benefit them. It was when my daughter had graduated from high school. And we lived right there in Berrien Springs, and Andrews University is across the street. I was just having this conversation in class today, and I'm thinking, oh, you don't have to go away. You could go right by Andrews, and you come home, and I could wash your clothes and cook your nice food for you. In my head, it was a great story. The narrative was awesome. And then she turned to me with confidence. She said, Mommy, that's exactly why I need to leave. I need to leave so I can grow up and become who I need to become without being dependent on you. And that she did. That girl went to Oakwood University, did 6 years. Not that she couldn't do it in 5, but she was working. While I paid tuition, she was working, paying her rent and her phone bill and whatever. I'm learning how to be responsible. And can I tell you, that separation, that growth was the best thing that happened for both of us, right? So sometimes we gotta let our children go, and we have to trust that what we instill in them, that they can take it to the next level. And she did, and did great. My child today now is a master social work license, honey. Huh? Look at that.
Yeah,
Clinical licensed social worker.
I tell you, it's what makes the difference.
You gotta
I
let
think
them be.
in that note, let's get into some of this. So out of the walk, there's you really had this kind of opportunity with your mom, and
Mm-hmm.
I should finish the story about my mom. My mom,
Mm-hmm.
I facetiously say that my mom took away my opportunity to call her on her parenting skills because she changed her whole life in the midst of my adulthood to where she found Christ in such a deep and abiding way that basically old things have passed away and all things have become new. But that's not right. That's not fair, right?
That
Because
is fair. That's
now,
the power of forgiveness and of change, a change
now
heart.
when well, she forgive herself. Good for her. But wait a minute, what can't I work on some stuff? Because I'm like, well, remember you did this, and she's like, no, don't remember that.
Mhm.
I don't know anything about it. But one of the things that I really am very proud of her for, and the more stories I hear, the more proud I am of her and thankful. Like a couple of years ago, a few years ago, I sent her a long text message and then had a conversation with her about my gratitude for
Mm,
what she went through and endured on my
mhm,
behalf because it's just an incredibly hard thing to be a parent,
mhm,
but to not know what you're doing and you
mhm,
kind of have to take that approach that you're just going to do your best.
mhm,
That's a really stressful situation. So
mhm,
gratitude just overflows.
mhm,
The thing that really did it for me is in her words, she did the best that she knew how.
mhm,
And that's all I would require from any parent
mhm,
is to
mhm,
do the best that you
mhm,
know how. Now, what I want to talk to you though about in the context of promoting healing is or promoting health. Promoting health is the idea of the best that you know how.
mhm,
And it's in the vein that you were just talking about, recognize
mhm,
how to support the
mhm,
health and well-being
mhm,
of your child and
mhm,
recognizing that they need those experiences. But what you said that really caught my eye is why I bring up my mom, because it's recognizing how they, the parent, and you as the parent, continue to grow and grow from the experiences of your children and that reaction. So how have you grown? Say more about that health that you're finding for yourself as your children have moved out on and you're the empty nester now.
mhm. I think the one thing that we don't always say, our children teaches us how to be that parent if we listen and we let them be that. Or we be that. I think again, Michael, before you can be who you want to be, you have to first again acknowledge. You must come to some sort of acknowledgement that these things has happened, and then make conscious choices to do better, to do different. So the issue for me, right, is that I knew that how my mother was treating me wasn't her best, right? Because she knew how to treat the others better. But for some reason, the trauma, the pain, the hurt, she maintained whatever it is that she needed to maintain so she could protect self, right? On on that level, right? So because she was cognizant of it, right? She knew she was deliberately doing these things to hurt me. um how have I grown? I have grown, as far as again recognizing. I have grown in desperately wanting a change, not expecting the change from her, but the change coming from me, taking the appropriate measure, right? Instead of blaming, like you said, like I want to ask you, so, well, you remember when you did this, and when you remember when you did, but I recognize doing that, casting blame, only make it worse, because then she revert and she get into spaces of defending rather than healing, and I was tired of that. So um, I grew by maturing and understanding that word honor, what that word honor means. And what Ephesians 6 talked about, it wasn't because she was good or she was bad. It says honor, period. There was no stipulation of how to honor. And again, I desperately wanted change. Not only that, I had to go. If I was doing this work, right, and other people outside was going to be inspired to want to do better, to want to heal from my story, I had to do the work for myself. I had to be the example. I had to be the mirror. So I had to take those hard pills, right? And go, Gail, swallow it, but do it so that you are healthy, your children are healthy, and communities around you are healthy. Your family, your sisters are healthy. They're not going to see it now. But my prayer is from the work that I am doing with myself, being intentional about this work, that can be healing for them as well, and propel them to want to heal and to work and do better for themselves.
Definitely, definitely, because I think that I think a lot of us, and that was what, you kind of know my personality. That's kind of my thing. Like, I have never one, as Amber's saying, I'm never one to go into a situation winging it. Like, I always want to go prepared and find out what the pitfalls are and that type of thing.
Not
I
parenting.
think the biggest thing for me with my kids was the I already knew the sense of responsibility with them, and that type of thing. That was a motivator. But learning about how decision making works,
Mm-hmm.
and how that's where I got into, by the time you met me, into the whole operational research and
Mm-hmm.
affirmations being an
Mm-hmm.
important part of that, and the messages that you give yourself,
Mm-hmm.
rewriting that
Mm-hmm.
inner voice, and
Mm-hmm.
how that's expressed in my
Mm-hmm.
work with the inner child,
Mm-hmm.
healing the inner child, and
Mm-hmm.
having those conversations to reparent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the big thing. I think that I think there's a good quote that Amber put up. She's talking about, when we were talking about the parents and how they don't remember stuff from when they were younger or whatever, after they've had a spiritual transformation, especially not operating under the same spirit. And I think that's a really good point in the context of the inner child and reparenting the inner child, because
Mm-hmm.
we're in a place as an adult to recognize, as you were talking about, the challenges that were in your childhood,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing what it is that you need now in the
Mm-hmm.
context of what would make a difference in that situation. So let's get into a final segment about facilitating healing in that vein, to answer that
Mm-hmm.
question in a deeper way. When you start to talk to that inner child and you recognize that you were searching for approval, like that's where
Mm-hmm.
where you set, because you know your reaction to your parents,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what you are really passionate about giving to your children, and
Mm-hmm.
the context of this walk, what you're passionate about giving to the world,
Mm-hmm.
that place of you being that person that your inner child needed,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And still needs.
Mm-hmm.
How do
Mm-hmm.
you how do you put that together? The Because my position is that your inner child is
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be parented in
Mm-hmm.
order to have that chance, that foundation to grow up and be
Mm-hmm.
healthy. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you start to do that in
Mm-hmm.
your life?
Boy, that's a hard question, and I don't know that I have the answer for it. I think that as much as I have these different roles as a mother, a professional, and so forth and so on, that inner child still needs to heal. Um, and I am healing as far as becoming and maturing. It's I think it's Fodler, Fowl. What is his name? He talks about the 6 or 7 stages of spiritual. Help me out here. Spiritual uh, development or faith.
Whoa, Fowler.
Fowler,
Yeah, yeah,
Fowler.
yeah.
And as I grow and as I become, right, I'm at that particular stage where um, I'm still reflective, but this is where it's flawless, and this is stage 4. You're reflective, in young adulthood, but I'm not. I'm almost 50, right? But I'm at the stage where I'm reflective of my life, where my life has been. And again, when you abuse hampers growth. It hampers maturity. It hampers your psychological and emotional growth. And so, by the grace of God, we're able somehow. I am able now to sit and do this in individuative reflection, where I'm considering what happened back in the day, what happened in the middle. I am here right now. How do I decide to move forward? So I am in the state still of healing. I think my inner child needs to be nurtured, and I can't put that on someone or have. And I think that's what I've been doing my whole life.
Big
I have
deal.
been trying to find relationship with people who are broken, who can't do that for me, and then get again another stage or level of abuse because what I wanted from them they couldn't give it to me, right? So I can't put the trust in someone to do that for me. I have to do this for myself, and it's where I'm at right now. I'm being reflective. I am making those conscious choices. I am building on what I know from the knowledge I have, because I have the knowledge. I have been educated. Oftentimes we don't put that education into play, but I have the skills, right? But it is now that I am ready to accept, to acknowledge, and to put those skills in place to add those skills in my life so that I could now be the healthy Gail. No, I don't know that I will completely heal, right? I think my journey is going to be a lifelong journey. But what is beautiful though is that I know for sure that I don't want relationships that are going to be toxic to me and put me in spaces and in situations where I have to revert. So I am so content in being at peace at this particular space where I can grow and become the best me in the eyes of God, right? And that is not a one-time thing. It is not tomorrow I'm going to wake up and become a brand new woman. I think it's a daily conscious choice of doing the work. These affirmation, these repeating, I am beautiful, I am who God created me to be, I am the head and not the tail, I am worthy, I am accepted, right? I may have been be the product of rift, but I am here for such a time as this. God have me on this earth for a purpose to bring light and inspiration to those who are hurting, just like myself, just like my mother, right? So my mantra had to change. And it changed only when I accept to change and want to really push myself and move forward. It ain't a one-time thing.
Yeah.
It's a process.
And that's a piece that I'm finding. Like I started this project like a year ago about working on your inner child, talking discussions with your inner child, and I'm just now starting to put out elements of it on social media and work through that process. It's I think the beauty of the analogy of the inner child is that the inner child actually never grows up. I think
Yeah.
that's in terms of getting older. I
Right.
think that inner child, that part of you stays a child and you have to
Mm-hmm.
continue to nurture it. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
analogy there is actually the analogy of healing. Like your healing isn't something that you complete
Right.
because it's analogous and connected to health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like so your health continues to
Mm-hmm.
be
You just
something
get better. You get
choices
better. Mm-hmm.
right. Over time, you're making choices
Mm-hmm.
about health in the
Mm-hmm.
same way you're making choices about
Mm-hmm.
healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, especially in the context that at any moment, there are triggers.
Right.
There is like a mental emotional state,
Right.
whether it's because you didn't sleep well, or because you're not getting enough rest, or you're not eating the best, where some trigger can come in and put you in that horrible space,
Right. Right.
right?
Mhm.
So it's important to maintain that holistic idea
Right. You
of
know,
healthy healing.
yeah, an example of that, you talk about triggers. So this weekend, I would have heard conversations about people deliberately saying to persons, don't go to the march because for whatever reason, right?
Mm,
And then I thought to myself, but these are people that I trust who should really be supporting me, right? And in my humanness, I wanted to get myself in thoughts of thinking how, really debilitating thoughts. And I go, you know what, Gail? We are in the process of healing. That is not your business. That ain't your problem. God did what he needed to do. You can't fix those people. You can't change. It's already been done. So cognitive behavioral therapy become my mode, right? So what is the positivity of this? You did have the march. Whether they come or not, the march was successful, right? And successful wasn't by the numbers.
yeah,
Successful was where it reached, who it reached, and who was inspired, and who
yeah,
needed to be there was there. So as we grow and we become that person, right? You have to continue. It's a continuous work, like you said, right? You have to channel your mind to think positively, to speak positively, to do right, because we are human, right? Because there are triggers, right? But you can't, and that's the thing about healing. When you are healing, Michael, there are spaces and places you cannot be anymore. Like you, it's repulsive, right? You want to be like you can't take it. But your body is warring with what's negative that you don't want to be a part of. So it's again recognizing, accepting, taking the steps to be in a healing mode, even when you're human, right? But so when you're human, you know that you're human. This is a human moment. I'm going to choose not to deal in my human moment. I'm going to choose to deal with what it is that I need to be healthy. And health, like health, Michael, health is not a one time thing, right? We have to exercise, we have to eat right, we have to sleep well, you have to get sunlight, right? You have to do the work to maintain health. Else you're going to get fat, and you're gonna lose your prettiness because you're not trying to lose the weight that cute, right? So you just gonna have to do the thing that you need to do to maintain your healing, to promote the healing, and the healing is a process. You just can't sit down and go, I'm healed, and that's it. No, it's like marriage. You can't go, well, I'm married now. I don't need to date my husband, or I don't need
oh,
to find a
don't
second
start,
husband.
don't
Or
start.
I
That's
don't need
another
to no,
episode.
no, no.
Another
Marriage
episode.
does not mean you have it, because you could be married and your husband leave you
Exactly.
because my sure did leave me, right? Or that whatever it is. No, because you are in a place of this doesn't mean that's the end all. You have to continuously do the work, right? And I'm committed.
Yeah.
I'm committed in
And
doing
and I would only change one word in that: you get to continuously do the work, because that
that.
really
Right,
that's the joy of life, is
right,
that
right.
continued. And if you can find people to do that with, all the
Mm-hmm.
better. But
All the
really,
better.
you and that inner child kind of taking on the world.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your approach to it.
Mm-hmm.
My approach to it really has been to really figure out what those core elements are, and
Mm-hmm.
really seek after the core elements of what my life is and what I want it to be. And number one for me, the projects that are big are on happiness. Like I have this whole program called the Happiness Choice, because happiness is a choice, and you choose that. You are engaged in that, and like I said, you get to experience that happiness. The second H is health, and like you said, you get to get up and exercise. You get to stretch, especially as we're getting older. I know you're coming up on a monumental birthday
I'm so
in a
excited.
couple of months, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you get to show people what it's like to actually
Mm-hmm.
live in a life that's really healthy, and have
Mm-hmm.
all these wonderful elements of health and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And then the piece that you also alluded to is what I would call holism.
Mm-hmm.
All these pieces fit together. I rarely talk about God and Jesus and prayer in particular,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm always talking about that when I'm talking. Like you,
Mm-hmm.
that's my whole thing. Like people have relegated, like for example, James, right, says pray without ceasing.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys have stopped praying? Like y'all stopped at some point because you got to do this without ceasing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm going to engage with this and find a way to integrate a lifestyle of prayer such that I am praying all the time. My life is a prayer. Like somebody asked me the other day, what do you do for fun? And of course, it's Thessalonians, First Thessalonians, where the verse is pray without ceasing. But anyway, just to clarify, but what do you do for fun? And I found myself listing the things I do for fun, but guess what? Those are the only things I do every day.
What do you do for fun?
You structure your life so that the enjoyment that you want in your life are the things that you're doing.
Do every day. Wow.
And that's where you get that I get to do. I get to do this every day. And finding ways to reframe to get that to happen. That's the whole process here. So that's my take on it. And I think we have a really good opportunity in that everyone does to address their inner child, honor their parents in the way that they honor them, speak to their children in the way that they need to speak to them, but to get to that health, happiness, and holism.
Well, hold on. So how did you address your inner child with the health, wholeness, and happiness?
It's that allowance. The way me, I have a quote to put on the wall. Permission, perspective, and purpose. Permission, perspective, and purpose. The superpower P's. Because a lot of us, that's really our challenge. Like the thing that got us caught up and immature in our inner child is we were never given the permission to do the things that we wanted to do. You remember when you were a kid and you wanted to do this thing or whatever, you want to be an artist or you want to be a writer, and somebody said, there's no money in that.
And you go, okay, I'm done, right?
Like, what? What are you talking about? Like, it doesn't matter whether there's money. That would make me happy.
Right.
And you see what I'm saying? So you're giving yourself the permission, the perspective to see that you can learn to do and you can learn how to monetize anything. Even if you, Dr. Gail, and Guy have to go and get a coach and pay them money.
I can't stand you.
But to start a podcast, even.
Yeah. I know what you're getting at. But right? I hear you. And so you have to make those decisions, set aside time. It's for real, because if you want to go, you have to put yourself in space and prepare to do that. You have to prepare to do that. I hear you. And so I'm looking at my coach, right in my coach's face, right? Yeah. And I don't know that he's looking back at me, but I'm looking at his name is Dr. Michael A. Wright, coach.
Right. You get into that space. That's the thing. And then purpose is found in that space. Once you get permission and perspective, purpose is right there, because you start to recognize everything that's pushing you, everything you're kind of irritated with. You can transform that energy and recognize that's my passion.
And
for this, that's what you did with this walk. Was you said all of that.
It didn't matter how hard it was. It didn't matter how much I have to go and beg. It didn't matter how much I have to go, how many times I had to go on the radio and promote. I didn't care. It was my passion. I felt joy doing it. And even at the end, when we did the presentation for my mom, there was a young lady, the one person who prayed, and she's as old as my mother, I think. And she admitted in the prayer that she was raped at 13 and how liberating this was for her. Yeah. When I was at the church doing the presentation, the one lady said, I am so glad that you're doing this, Dr. Guy, because me too. The congregation may have never known, but for the first time she admitted it publicly, that she too has been abused as a child. And that's the thing, is to give people space, a voice, right? To say and to break the silence, because the silence is what kills us. The silence is giving us heart attack and keeping us in situations and spaces where we're unhealthy. So we need to liberate and give people what is it, the inspiration, right, to want to liberate themselves as well as others. So hey,
that space is courage and permission and perspective, and it's just a lot of love, even in the truer sense of the word. Just like you said, you gave love specifically to your children, so they had a space to really engage this. And I love this that Amber's pointing to, that fact that there are multiple children. You might have a
9-year-old, 11-year-old, and 12-year-old, 14-year-old. In my mind, many times something happened to me at 14, and I can't quite figure it out, because I would always, my inner child would take me back to 14 years old, no matter how, and for years it does that, and I must go back to check to see what might have happened at 14.
Yeah, it's critically important to give yourself the space to do that, like find that reality, and like that's what I'm gonna be promoting. You'll see those videos. It's pretty soon. I'm doing the videos now on Instagram that are.
We just do a piece together. Right.
Say it again.
We gotta do something together.
Oh yeah.
A video or something. And I know our time is almost gone, but I want to thank Amber, whoever you are, wherever you are. I want to thank you for engaging with us tonight. Because while you're talking, I'm reading and you're giving me ideas. I go, yes, we're going to talk about that. But thank you, Amber. We try to do this every Wednesday night, except for the nights when I'm tired and I'm swamped with things. I also teach during the day, and my last class ends at 8:15. So my brain is fried. But I think this is important work, and this is why we are here doing this tonight. So
definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wright.
As always, I appreciate talking with you and enjoying myself, challenging both of us.
You must behave yourself. Oh, I saw what's his name? Pastor Michael.
Yes.
Oh, he's so in love with you. He go tell Dr. Wright I say hello. I said, I will.
See? And that's what I'm talking about. I don't understand why everybody isn't just in
love with you, right? Boy, I don't know.
I don't get it. But hey, you got to let people be in their own time. They'll get there in their own time.
You're something else. Oh, God. Anyways, listen.
Have a good night.
You too, dear. Thank you so much.
All right.